Good day and welcome to meeting number 13 of the Standing Committee on Indigenous and Northern Affairs.
Ceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. Aujourd'hui, on poursuit.
Today, we're gathered to continue our study on the effects of housing shortages on Aboriginal peoples in Canada.
Cleo Strarum, head of Indigenous Banking at BMO Financial Group, as well as Miss Tracy Antoine, Vice President of Commercial Financial Services, Indigenous Markets, British Columbia Region, Royal Bank of Canada. And later we'll go on to a second panel at 4:15.
I would like to remind you, all of those you participating today, of the Board of Internal Economy requirements regarding physical distancing and mask wearing.
So wait until I recognize you. Mute yourself when you're not speaking. We will be hearing from our two panelists right now, and I would like to begin with Miss Cleo Strarum. Ms. Strarum, you have 5 minutes to make your presentation.
Mr. Chair, if I could just interrupt before we start, could you review the interpretation buttons with the witnesses?
Very good. Members or witnesses may speak in the official language of their choice. Interpretation services in English, French, and Inuktitut are available for the first part of today's meeting. Please be patient with the interpretation. There may be a delay, especially since the Inuktitut has to be translated into English first before it can be translated into French and vice versa. The interpretation button on your screen can be found at the bottom in either English or French or Inuktitut. If interpretation is lost, please inform me immediately. We'll stop things until we can fix the problem. So as I said, before you speak, please wait till I recognize you by name. And when you are speaking, speak slowly and clearly. When you're not speaking, your microphone should be on mute. So once again, Ms. Strarum, you have the microphone for 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, Ani. My name is Cleo Strarum. I am Cree, and my community is Fond du Lac First Nation, and I am the head of Indigenous Banking at Bank of Montreal. BMO has a long history of partnering with Indigenous communities. The Indigenous Banking Unit, which I head up, was created in 1992, so 30 years ago today, to address a gap in available capital for First Nations governments as a result of the Indian Act. A housing shortage has existed for Indigenous people for generations. Due to the Indian Act, banks cannot take security over tangible assets on reserve. Anyone who's not a member of a community is not allowed to seize ownership of assets on reserve. So for this reason, for generations, Indigenous peoples have not been able to build needed infrastructure in their communities or even build intergenerational wealth for themselves and their families the way Canadians have off reserve. Homes also create a place to heal from intergenerational trauma. In response to this, we figured out how to lend in this space by relying on the strength of the First Nation or Indigenous governments and their guarantees. In 1995, our on-reserve home loan program was created to make it possible for Indigenous peoples living on reserve to borrow from a major financial institution to either buy, build, or renovate a home in their community. In addition to our on-reserve home loan program, BMO has partnered with the First Nations Market Housing Fund. The fund provides additional security in the form of a credit enhancement. We do Section 10 and Section 95 loans, lending to Indigenous governments and people to build homes. And these loans are supported by ministerial guarantees and CMHC insurance. We also provide infrastructure loans to Indigenous governments to build multiple homes. So this can be done without a ministerial guarantee or CMHC insurance, but is instead based on the strength of the Indigenous government. These homes can either be rented or sold to members after they're built. And this approach reduces the cost to build each home as economies of scales are achieved, which is particularly important for some of our more northern and remote communities. While these products alone will not solve the housing shortages, they represent BMO's commitment to making a positive difference. However, there are many factors at play. Household incomes are also a critical component. As a response to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's call to action for corporate Canada, BMO's Indigenous Strategic Framework is based on 3 pillars: education, employment, and economic empowerment. These are guided by our Indigenous Advisory Council. Higher education and employment opportunities lead to higher incomes. In response to this, at BMO, we support Indigenous students with scholarships and bursaries. We also strive to increase our Indigenous representation at BMO through internships, hiring programs, and formal mentoring programs for our new hires to support them during their career at BMO. We're also a member of Canadian Council for Aboriginal Businesses, and we've been awarded a Progressive Aboriginal Relations Award at the gold level consecutively 6 times. This award measures companies' Indigenous employment and procurement practices, and the gold level is the highest possible achievement. So looking ahead, there's still much that can be done. It's critically important to increase the available supply of housing in Indigenous communities. Additionally, these homes need to be equipped to handle the impacts of climate change. Heat waves, forest fires, extended freezing temperatures, and flooding are all realities that are only going to worsen. Our northern communities are particularly feeling these extremes, exacerbated by the higher building and energy costs. Creating stronger, adaptable, mobile, and energy-efficient homes will be key. And partnerships, I believe, will also contribute to making positive change possible. Miigwech.
Thank you, Ms. Strarham. We'll now go to Ms. Tracy Antoine. Ms. Antoine, you have 5 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Thank you. Tracy Antoine Spext. Hello, everyone. My name is Tracy Antoine. As Vice President for Indigenous Banking at RBC for the BC region, I thank you for the invitation to appear before the committee today. The housing crisis facing Indigenous peoples is an issue of which I am acutely aware, both personally and professionally. At RBC, we see the effects of the housing crisis in many forms, on reserve, in remote communities, and also in urban areas. For example, that approximately 60% of First Nation housing on reserve is in need of minor and major repairs, with 10% needing complete replacement. Overcrowding is a serious concern when talking of the residents' health on reserve. For this, we provide many housing alternatives, including an RBC housing program, called the On-Reserve Housing Loan Program, which is a specific relationship between RBC and the First Nations government. We also support all other funding housing opportunities through the Ministerial Loan Guarantee offered by Indigenous Services Canada and CMHC for low-income affordable housing. One of the concerns that RBC has is the low-income affordable housing is becoming creates a dependency cycle because of lack of jobs. So, as previously noted by Cleo, it is very evident that the support of higher education to overcome the low income is cyclical when it comes to providing adequate housing. So with housing, you also need infrastructure dollars. With the $30 billion infrastructure deficit currently held by the federal government and 35,000 units in short comings, it is hard for banks such as RBC and others to come to the table and provide housing funding when there's no infrastructure to build on. The COVID-19 pandemic has shown the serious concern of First Nations leaderships that we communicate with on a regular basis with the overcrowded housing conditions. Therefore, housing for RBC is a crisis that we want to be at the table to help the government resolve through our financial services and through our philanthropic investment programs that we currently offer over and above all of the housing programs that we support that are available to the nations. Access to affordable financing for homes is just a small yet important step forward eradicating this crisis, but it is definitely not the sole solution. As the fastest growing demographic and an integral part of the future workforce for the nation, it is important to RBC to remain committed to further discussions specific to finding innovative solutions to overcome collateral security that supports more capital projects and job creation. 25 years after publishing The Cost of Doing Nothing, we find the agenda items have remained the same. This will for us to be able to have future conversations and have RBC work together and implement long-term solutions as partners of change. This will assist the First Nations in Canada in meeting their goals and becoming prosperous and self-sustaining in the spirit of reconciliation. Kukshacham. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Antoine. We'll now proceed with a round of questions, beginning with Ms. Stubbs from the Conservative Party. Ms. Stubbs, you have 6 minutes.
Mr. Chair, if it's all right with you, we've had a change of lineup here, if that's okay, and Mr. Vidal is going to go first, if that's all right.
Very good, Mr. Vidal. Go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Aram, I want to go down a couple questions with you first, and recognizing that you come from Fond du Lac, which is in my riding. And last week I was talking about the tuberculosis outbreaks that have been happening in that area, and obviously the direct connection that has to overcrowded housing. And I mean, we're talking some very direct links here, and you're obviously very aware of the remote areas up in northern Saskatchewan coming from there. So with that in mind, I want to go down a little bit. You talk about your on-reserve housing program, and I want to understand how you qualify for that. Like what's the kind of technical aspects of that? So I don't want to get into too much accounting lingo, but how you actually qualify and what it takes, and maybe a little bit what the difference is in something as northern remote as Fond du Lac, which is kind of fly-in access, compared to communities that have maybe they're still remote, but maybe not as inaccessible as some of those communities. If you could just kind of do a bit of a rundown for me on that, that would be great.
My pleasure. Thanks for the question. So the way our program works, essentially it straddles both the retail bank and the commercial bank. On the commercial side, we set up a contingent liability, and that's based on the Indigenous community or the First Nation government, the First Nation. So we have that overarching contingent liability approved at the First Nation level in the commercial bank. And this is based on the strength of the First Nation, strength on the financials of the First Nation. And that's how we get the initial program set up. Then it moves into the retail part of our bank. And that's where individual members will come into a branch and apply for a loan. So let's say, for example, we have $2 million authorized overarching for a First Nation community. And let's just say it costs $200,000 to build a home in that community. They would come into the branch, request a $200,000 loan. And the way that we assess that individual is based on the same assessment markers for anybody across Canada. So the exact same application process happens for that individual. The difference being really the security that's in that. Off reserve, it would be a house. In a community, it's really the guarantee that we're relying on from the First Nation government.
No, I appreciate that and understand the security issue there. So that's very helpful. Can you tell me how many First Nations have gone through? Like, is this a very common relationship that you have with many First Nations, or is this a new venture that's and if it is how fast is it growing? I guess maybe if I could go that way.
It's a good question. So we started this program in 1995, so a long time ago. And we now have over 100 communities that are participating in the program. I would say that the growth rate of this program really just depends on, how much communities, want to sign up for this program. But I do think that there is a lot of opportunity here for continued growth. I should note that RBC is also being represented, and really formalized programs like this, they're at BMO and they're at RBC, and at the other institutions, they don't have formalized programs. So that is another component to the equation.
Thank you. You led me right into my my next step here. I wanted to go to Ms. Antoine, because you talked about some similar programs that that you've been working on. So I want to give you the chance to answer the same questions if you would like to, and I won't take a bunch of time asking them again. I'll just give you the floor to answer the same questions if you want.
Absolutely. So RBC was the first to market with an on-reserve housing loan program such as this in the early 90s. I mean, Cleo and I know we cross paths often in the marketplace because we're out there doing the same kind of work, trying to overcome this housing crisis. So we're not here as competitors, but we definitely do support the housing crisis that we're talking about today. We have currently at RBC $200 million in contingent liability that has been approved, and we expect another $100 million to come through the door in the current fiscal and half of the next fiscal, just based on the existing relationships we have and everybody being focused on housing. Access to infrastructure is always something that they feel they need to overcome. Funding flows slowly through the current federal government infrastructure programs. So at times come to the table for the nation and provide bridge financing to help them build units. This program is specifically built for those that are employed in communities. So the affordable housing, low-income CMHC programs tend to support those that are unable to work or on social assistance under the welfare system schematic currently delivered by Indigenous Services Canada. So we work really hard through our bank programs to make affordable housing on reserve that is backstopped by the First Nations guarantee, of which at times RBC and BMO will risk share these facilities as well at a 70-30 split. And we're looking and talking about risk sharing at a higher rate as well, so that this makes more for those communities that have infrastructure funding in place and available to build as fast as the infrastructure is put in.
Thank you. I'm just
afraid,
curious.
Sorry, Mr. Vidal, the 6 minutes
I'm
is
sorry.
up. I know you keep a timer as well. We'll now go to Ms. Atwin, and I understand you may wish to share your time with Mr. Pawlowski, but go ahead. You have 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much to our witnesses for joining us today. I'm speaking from Fredericton, which is unceded Williston-Gallic territory here in New Brunswick. Maybe, Ms. Antoine, I'll begin with you. Just can you speak generally about why it was important for RBC to have, as a separate, or as a financial institution, a separate Indigenous banking unit? Can you talk about kind of where that concept came from and why it's important for your institution? To Ms. Antoine, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Ms. Antoine.
Sorry, I thought I was unmuted. I said RBC has had at the forefront reconciliation initiatives for many, many decades. We began relationships probably about 60 years ago with our first on-reserve branch. And since then, we've been listening and communicating with First Nations communities across the country. There are so many situations where we are able to help them, and we do see a huge shift in the First Nations communities swinging from a managing poverty perspective to a managing wealth perspective. So we find that the financial literacy is in demand, and value adds is something that is part of reconciliation. Housing is just one of the agenda items that we do work passionately on, because we do see the direct impact on their health based on overcrowded conditions. So COVID-19 brought it back to the forefront with how important it is when you see such things as this COVID and the TB spread throughout a community very quickly with high numbers just based on overcrowding in itself. So that is one way to start turning the wheel to having real social impact in a First Nations community. And it's very, very important to this organization.
Thank you very much. And maybe to Mr.
If I could interrupt.
So we talked a little bit about.
I'm sorry, it's the committee clerk. Ms. Atwin, if you could I'm told if you could slow your questions down a little bit. Your video feed is not keeping up with your question, and so just slow your question down a little bit.
Okay, thank you. I've been told many times that I speak too fast. So we talked a little bit about some of the programs through BMO, through RBC, that can help support First Nations, on reserve to qualify for mortgages. And I'm just wondering if there's any changes in legislation or policy that may be helpful to allow banks to provide mortgages. Just if we could talk about the policy side of things. Ms. Durham.
Thank you. Yeah, when I look at what I see as an opportunity for changes that the government could make, aside from the barriers that exist with taking security on reserve and somehow figuring out a way to change that entirely, I do have some other thoughts on just some general ideas that potentially could be used. For example, currently, with the Ministerial Loan Guarantee Program, you can have, 1, 2, or 3 houses being approved for a community. And then really you're going to continue having significant housing shortage supply issues in these communities because that's not the number of houses that they need. They need a lot more houses than that. And so rather than dedicating this funding amount for just so few homes, making it possible to redirect that funding to repay for infrastructure financing. So actually lending money to build more than 1, 2, or 3 homes, to build, 10 or 20 homes at a time, but using that annual funding as a source of repayment for those loans. And that way you're getting out the supply up front versus, houses being built over 25 years, you're getting the houses up front and the repayment happening over 25 years. Another idea is really incentivizing your own home, or owning your own home. So home ownership, I do think, is key. I've talked about our home loan program. And I think it's key to alleviating some of the pressures on the housing shortages, because then you have multiple supply of housing. You have one on the government side, either through the Indigenous government or federal government, and then on the other side from the individual Indigenous person who's getting a loan, who's building their own home. It just increases the supply of housing because it's coming from different sources. However, if in your community home ownership is not that popular, or it's just not seen that often, and your best alternative to owning your home is living in one that has, very little costs associated with it, I think it's important to encourage home ownership really at the leadership level. So when we talk about government changes, this could also be at the Indigenous government level, where you see chief and council and elders, business leaders, all of these leadership people in a community encouraging others to do the same for home ownership. Another thought is reducing that cost differential. So we talked about building homes in Northern Canada or in more remote communities, and the difference between the cost of building a home in Winnipeg versus Northern Saskatchewan, it's a substantial cost differential. And that can also be very discouraging if you want to build your own home. So again, this comes to funding, but providing some sort of, funding for this gap to just take away that barrier of seeing the difference in the cost, I think is another opportunity to encourage home ownership yourself. And then my last, which I feel like is not groundbreaking, but multi-unit buildings and multi-unit residential buildings. So building more of these mid-rise buildings with smaller units would really increase supply. I think the standard of single-family homes in our communities, detached homes, really provides housing for a family. But we do have, young people, we do have elders, we do have people that just, want to live alone. And so bachelor units, one-bedroom units, I think would be helpful and would appeal to a broader range and be more affordable and potentially also lead to more home ownership.
Thank you, Ms. Cleo. Thank you, Ms. Atwin. Nous allons maintenant passer.
Now we're going to turn to Madame Gill. You have 6 minutes. Thank you, Chair. I would like to thank our witnesses, Madame Straram. We've talked in this committee on a number of occasions that solutions need to be multiple to deal with a complex and difficult challenge. So I'm very pleased to see participants from the banking industry. I have a question for Ms. Straram, and in reference to her experience as being responsible for the Quebec region. Mrs. Straram, would you be able to talk a little bit more about your experience with Indigenous houses and BMO, but in regard to Quebec, a bit about your clientele and some of the projects, and then I'll have some other questions.
For sure. Thank you. So my idea about funding the cost differential for more remote communities was admittedly not my own idea. This is something that's happening currently in Quebec. And I think it's a really good idea. And they recognized, that issue and came up with a solution. And that was providing that funding gap. So I think that's a really important one. The other experience that we have with Quebec is financing at the First Nation government level or Indigenous government level for building multiple homes. So not so much relying on a ministerial guarantee for one individual person or for the First Nation, but lending money to a First Nation government for building 5, 10 homes at a time or a multi-unit building. I think I'll probably repeat a lot of what I had said already, so I'll try not to do that too much, but that is what I've been seeing in Quebec as really innovative ways to help alleviate some of the housing shortage that we see.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Ms. Straran. What difficulties have you seen? I expect there are difficulties all across the territory, but I have visited a number of communities in the riding I represent, and yes, the challenges are multiple, but what difficulties have you come across, and what kind of assistance have you been able to provide to deal with the on-reserve housing shortage?
So just to bring it back to this, it's those remote communities, the cost to build in those remote regions is just so exceptionally high compared to communities that are more urban, located to urban centers. So you're not only trying to figure out a way to bring up materials for building a home and, getting them onto a truck that can drive over a frozen water or that can make it through like in the right season because there's flooding issues. But you also have all the other materials that you have to get up for building that home and just, existing up there like diesel for energy as an energy source. So I think that the costs of making this happen is just so, it's really inhibiting for being able to address this issue. I think that for me is the biggest one, and figuring out a way to get more houses done at a lower cost is what should really, like what I see as a primary focus. So be that by...
I don't want to interrupt you, but I just want to validate your answer. It's because we don't have much time. So what you're telling us is it is more difficult for communities that are in remote regions because of the cost of labor and transport, and it's difficult for them to access funding from financial institutions. And as members of parliament, we should try to find solutions to facilitate communities' access to funding. If I understood correctly, Ms. Straram?
Facilitate access of funding by making it more possible for these members in more remote communities. So, you know, if it costs twice as much to build a home up north and you're earning the same income, it's twice as expensive for you. So either reducing the costs or increasing the funding source to like cover that cost differential. And by reducing costs, that's where I suggest building multiple homes at one time, because you're really getting economies of scale. If you're building 5 or 10 homes at once, you can use the same architects, you can use the same contractors, you can haul up more materials in one order, and all of that reduces the per unit cost.
Monsieur le Président.
Chair, do I still have a little time? 30 seconds. That's what I thought. I'll come back a bit later. Thanks.
Merci, Madame Gill. We'll now.
Thank you, Ms. Gill.
Ms. Sidlaut, you have 6 minutes.
Thank you, everyone. First of all, I welcome you and I enjoyed your presentation. I will ask both of you, and you can reply separately. In my riding of Nunavut, there are only 4 banks. I hear from my constituents the challenges they experience just with the basic banking. Given these realities, how does your bank serve to meet the needs of Indigenous people who lack physical access to do things like applying for a mortgage? If they needed assistance and needed to borrow money to buy a house, how do you assist them in the remote communities?
It is possible we set up agency banks, so that gives an opportunity to have a somewhat of an access to a face-to-face person to do the loan applications. If there is connectivity or bandwidth for virtual appointments, we will do mortgage applications through remote account opening as well as mortgage applications after we have been able to set up a program or decide with the First Nations leadership which program they want to use that are available to the Nunavut area, the communities. We will also go to communities and travel in and do paper applications, and then where there is no bandwidth for connectivity to the internet, and we will make sure that those get loaded in, applications are processed, and then another trip back into community to meet the individuals on a as needed basis. And we will also do appointments through telephone, but it takes a lot of connectivity with the First Nations leaders to make sure that there's no fraud occurring in the community.
Go ahead, Ms. Strauram, if you wanted to answer as well.
Thank you. A lot of my answers will be similar, to be honest. So online banking is a significant thing that's happening now. And I understand that there are internet connectivity issues in some communities. So for sure aware of that. But the ability to move, everybody in a community into online banking is really like the safest, most efficient approach. But we also have telephone banking, and we have a group that's dedicated to handling requests over the telephone. We do also have branches that are located across the country, but specifically in your riding, it's a similar structure where we would seek to have everybody set up with their banking as much as possible remotely. And then for any final identification confirmation pieces, that would require an actual banker going into the community. But other than that, everything can be done on a remote basis, and we strongly encourage it as well.
Thank you. if you could both respond to this next question. When you want to take a bank loan to buy a mortgage, insurance is required. In Nunavut, it is very difficult to get insurance. How can you assist people in remote communities who need insurance if they qualify for a mortgage or a loan?
Although it is difficult to get insurance through the government, there is also alternative programs through Canada Mortgage and Housing where mortgages can be provided through projects that are worked in partnership with government funding, Canada Mortgage and Housing, and RBC. RBC also has an insurance division that has been training and focusing on these insurance gaps as well. So we work very diligently to close the gaps that are brought to our attention through our network. We also have the on-reserve housing loan program where getting into a mortgage is as low as 2.5% down, so that it isn't taking citizens of a nation or a community too long to be able to save for their down payment as well. As I recognize, insurance is something that is required to be prepaid for a lot of the applications.
Thank you, Ms. Jaram.
Yes, our housing loan program does have an insurance component to it. It's negotiated with the Indigenous government that we're setting the program up with. And it's a requirement if the Indigenous government makes it a requirement. So it's not mandatory on BMO's side of business, but it's set up as an individual term for each different community.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sidlaut. That concludes the first round of questions. Unfortunately, because of timing constraints, we'll have to stop there. I'd like to thank Ms. Jaram and Ms. Antoine for agreeing to provide testimony today and for answering our questions. You're important stakeholders on this important study concerning housing, so we very much appreciate you taking the time to speak to us today. Thank you very much. And with that, I'd like to suspend so we can prepare for the second panel. Thank you. Metallic of the Schulich School of Law at Dalhousie University, Mr. Gary Bailey, President of the Northwest Territories Métis Nation, and Miss Sarah Silva, CEO of the Hayam Housing Society of the Squamish Nation. Welcome today, and just to remind you that you may speak in the official language of your choice. We have interpretation services in English, French, and Inuktitut. They're available. Please be patient with the interpretation. Sometimes it takes a while to come through. The interpretation button is found at the bottom of your screen, either English, French, or Inuktitut. If interpretation is lost, please inform me immediately. We'll stop the proceedings so that we can correct that. So with that, I would like to invite our first speaker, Professor Naomi Metallic, to take the microphone for a statement. You have 5 minutes, Professor.
Thank you for the invitation to speak to you today as you study this important issue. My areas of experience on Indigenous issues include learning a great deal about the chronic underfunding of essential services to First Nations living on reserve, including social assistance and housing, as well as federal funding policies that have seriously contributed to the housing shortages in First Nations. That is not what I am here to speak about this evening, however, though I hope you are looking at these issues as well. I'm not here to focus on the causes of the problem, but rather to highlight a possible part of the solution, at least for Mi'kmaq and Wolastoqey communities in the Maritimes. I'm here to talk about the Dale Sapir, Clark Polches, and Joseph Gray cases that were decided by the Supreme Court of Canada in 2006. In this case, the court held that Mi'kmaq and Wolastoqey peoples have the right to harvest timber for domestic use as an Aboriginal right. This case has been underutilized, and I think it certainly holds promise as part of the solution to the housing shortage in Mi'kmaq and Wolastoqey communities. To explain the case, Sapir and Polches, who are Wolastoqey from the Woodstock First Nation, cut 16 hardwood logs from Crown lands around the Nashwaak River watershed in New Brunswick. The men planned to use the wood for construction of Polches' home, specifically to make the hardwood flooring and furniture consisting of tables, beds, and cabinets, and any leftovers to be used for community firewood. Gray, who is Mi'kmaq from the Pabineau First Nation, cut down 4 bird's eye maple logs on Crown lands in the area. He planned to use the wood to make furniture, specifically cabinets, end tables, and coffee tables, as well as molding for his home. All men were charged under New Brunswick's Crown Lands and Forest Act with unlawful possession of Crown timber from Crown lands. The Supreme Court of Canada found that these men had an Aboriginal right to harvest wood for domestic purposes on their traditional lands. This is because the evidence showed that pre-contact, both the Mi'kmaq and Wolastoqey people used wood to fulfill their domestic needs, including for shelter, transportation, tools, and fuel. In the modern context, the court said the practice evolved into a right to harvest wood by modern means to be used in the construction of modern dwellings. To my knowledge, First Nations in the region have yet to fully seize on this right to address housing needs, but I suspect this is largely due to a lack of appetite by provincial governments to work with First Nations to implement this right. More needs to be done to actualize this right. Court decisions, by their nature, are very focused. They don't provide all the details that are necessary to be worked out in order to respect and implement inherent rights. The Supreme Court has said it only lays down minimum standards, and it is open for, and the court encourages governments to go beyond this. There inevitably needs to be negotiations, agreements, and possibly even legislation to flesh out the right. I think there is a role for Canada to play here. This could range from supporting communities with capacity and infrastructure dollars to build mills and train community members in the processing of lumber. This might also include legislating in the area. There is potentially a need to lay out parameters around the exercise of this right. And if the provinces, especially if the provinces are unwilling to do so, Canada has the power to do this under Section 9124. even in relation to Crown land in the province. If the committee wants some further legal and academic sources to draw on in this regard, I would be happy to supply this. I will end by saying that in whatever capacity Canada decides to act, collaboration with the Mi'kmaq and Wolastoqey and recognizing their role in the management and stewardship of lumber resources is key. In the Sapir-Gray decision, the Supreme Court stressed that the right to harvest lumber for domestic use is a communal right. This acknowledges a communal management or self-government dimension to this right. Not just exploitation of the resource by individual members, but the community managing the use of the resource. This also aligns with both Mi'kmaq and Wolastoqey's people's own laws that emphasize stewardship of the land and sustainable resource practices. In Mi'kmaq, this is captured in the concept Nidugalimk. With that, I will end with Walaliok to thank you, the committee, for the opportunity to speak with you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Metallic. We'll now go to our second speaker, Mr. Gary Bailey. Mr. Bailey, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. As President of the Northwest Territory and Métis Nation, I'm pleased for the opportunity to appear before the Standing Committee, Senate Committee on Aboriginal Peoples. Little background, Indigenous Métis of the Northwest
Monsieur le Président,
Territory.
je m'excuse. Un appel au règlement pour la question de la traduction, l'interprétation.
I apologize, Mr. Chair. The interpreter has just explained that the quality of the sound is too poor to interpret, and the service has been interrupted.
Understand, very good. We'll just pause for a second, perhaps Madam Clerk or the IT people can see if Mr. Bailey can move his microphone to be more understandable. At the moment, Mr. Bailey, the translators don't have sufficient quality of voice to be able to translate, and so we have a bit of a problem. So they may have some suggestions for you.
Mr. Chair, if I could just explain, Mr. Bailey could not receive a House of Commons headset because he's in the Northwest Territories and we couldn't ship one to him in time. And so he purchased one to the best of his ability. And unfortunately, it's insufficient. We knew this. He did not pass his technical test. And so we're just doing the best that we can. If the interpreters are unable to interpret, perhaps we'll have to end his testimony.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Bailey, unfortunately, if the interpreters can't translate, then we can't provide service in both official languages, which is a problem. I don't know if at your end you have anything you think you might be able to do to make your voice clearer. But if not, I'm afraid we'll have to stop your testimony, and we'll see what we can do to perhaps bring you back on another occasion. But perhaps you could try something now, and if it doesn't work, we'll do it another time.
Okay. Can you hear me now? This is a little bit better. I don't know. You did a sound check.
Monsieur le Président, je m'excuse.
Chairman, I apologize. I just want to intervene once again for the purpose of equity. I mean, we do want to really take care of our interpreters' auditory health, but we also want to avoid the frustration of a witness. We've already refused a witness for the same reason who was to appear during the first block. We want our witnesses to be able to appear, and of course, with adequate equipment, respect for the entire committee and interpreters. Thanks, Madam Gill. We will do everything possible.
But we're going to have to end your testimony. We will do our very best to get you back and to get you a proper headset so that you can provide testimony at a future date. So I'm terribly sorry, but we'll have to stop at this point. In
the meantime, I did email all my speaking notes, so hopefully they can just take my speaking notes and go with that. It's unfortunate that that's the way this is going, but it seemed to be fine earlier when we did a test. So.
Understood. And as I say, we will try to get you back. But thank you for providing your speaking notes. And we're sorry that we couldn't carry on. It is important to have the interpretation. With that, Ms. Sarah Silva, we're passing it to you.
Chairman?
You have, yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, it's unfortunate that we can't move forward with Mr. Bailey's presentation. It points to the fact that we don't have any opportunity, because there's no chance you're going to mail a headset to anybody in the Northwest Territories unless you're going to give us 2 or 3 weeks advance notice. So that really puts us at a disadvantage if it comes down to bringing people to make presentations. We have to find a better way, or I'm wasting my time here. If I can't bring my witnesses in to present on a very important matter, that we have the second highest core need in the country, and we can't get a person that is really deeply affected by it as a leader to present. I think there's got to be a solution that's found. It's not the first time, but it affects us more in the north than any other part of this country.
Thank you, Mr. McLeod. I think you make an extremely important point. It's clear that if we're going to provide headsets to some of the remote communities, we have to schedule the appearance of people living in those remote communities at a later date to allow sufficient time to get the headsets to them. As I said, we will try to get Mr. Bailey back, because I know he's an important witness. And we'll do the same thing, of course, for Mr. Cannell, who was not able to speak in the first session. With that, I'd like to proceed. Ms. Silva, if you're ready, you have the microphone for 5 minutes.
Tanoya, hello, my name is Sarah Silva. I am a Squamish Nation member and CEO of Heme Housing Society. Heme Housing Society is an incorporated nonprofit society that was created a few years ago by the Squamish Nation to develop and manage culturally appropriate and affordable housing within our community. The Squamish Nation is one of the largest First Nations in BC. We have approximately 4,000 members. Most of live off reserve. And we have, of course, like most First Nations, a lot of issues around affordability and need. But our current wait list right now is approximately 30 years long with 1,000 people. Just to speak a little bit about the unaffordability really in our region. North Vancouver, Squamish, BC, and Vancouver are some of the most expensive cities in the world, and we're really facing a lot of really unaffordable rents that don't align with our income levels. And what's currently happening is a lot of our community members are moving really far away into rural areas, not within our actual communities and reserves. And they're paying most of their income on shelter, meaning that there's not a lot left over for actual food and education and even heat a lot of the time. And so that's been a rising issue that we're trying to address by bringing everybody home within a generation. Another issue is, of course, the poor living conditions and overcrowded homes on and off reserve. Of course, we have the overcrowded situation happening on reserve. We have many different generations living under one roof. And what's happening is that a lot of the younger generations don't essentially have another home to move into because there's nothing around that's affordable. And so they're continuing to live within the home. And what we're also seeing is not enough funding for renovations and just nowhere to move. And a lot of elders are living unfortunately in condemned homes and moldy homes without anywhere to go. And so along with, of course, I think a lot of the same, poor living conditions and overcrowded situation on reserve, we're also facing a lot of discrimination and poor living conditions off reserve as well, because we don't, we're getting, the lower end of the stock essentially. And, there's a lot of people that are applying to live in rental units and we're facing a lot of discrimination. And a lot of the time when we get into these units, they're illegal units and they're also moldy and we don't necessarily have a a place to argue for our rights in those situations, those landlord situations. And so it's been an ongoing issue that we're trying to resolve by creating HEAM Housing. And essentially, we're incorporated nonprofit, but we're also a housing authority, which is a best practice that's used by a lot of other First Nations, in a sense that we can separate housing operations and governance from our leadership and from our council. And it has been working. And so we have been managing, we have our own governance, we're doing our own strategic planning, and we're going out for a lot more funding. And we have got a lot of funding in the last couple of years, and we're going to be building 3 new developments that we're really excited about. We're going to be breaking ground in the next couple of months, which is going to help, but it's really, I mean, the need is great. So that's just helping with, meet a little bit of the need that we have within our community. Some programs that we've launched in the last few years that have really helped us are the market rent supplement program. And essentially what that is that we offer our residents who are living off reserve a market rent supplement, essentially to subsidize their rents. And so what we know is that we do have a home ownership program that we launched as well, but we need to have programs in place that allow us to be able to be in this position to save for a down payment. And so we had huge interest for the market rent supplement. We had about 150, and we had about 2 people for the home ownership. And I just think that speaks to the real need in our community. Of course, we want to get there, and we want to have those programs and that housing in place to get there. But we're dealing with really core need and the need for supportive housing and just regular rent geared to housing as well. And just to speak a little bit about, the increased poverty levels as well. What we're noticing, of course, is with the rising cost of housing is that it's really creating a real income divide between our community and the outside community, but also internally in our community as well. And unfortunately, without any support, our community hasn't been able to afford a lot of the rents, like I said before, and they're just being pushed further and further away from the community sports that we have. And another issue that we're noticing as well, and part of our mandate to bring everybody home in a generation, is that we are persisting negative colonial impacts through this housing crisis, because our community members, and including myself, I was also raised in social housing, and I had my mom was Squamish and she raised 4 children on her own, but we moved into social housing very, very far away from our community. It was the only thing that we could afford. And we didn't have access to our own school. We didn't have access to our longhouse. We didn't have access to our elders and our language and our way of life, sports teams, all of that stuff. And so we were very isolated and we didn't get a lot of support. And so the idea is to really, bring our community back to those supports, back to our way of life and build that up. And what's happening without a lot of that housing is these negative impacts are really getting worse. And another item is.
Perhaps I could ask you to wrap it up, Ms. Silva.
Oh, okay, absolutely. I was just going to say some recommendations is that we really need housing to be prioritized. Hopefully, there are a lot of housing barriers that exist under the Indian Act. I hope that those can be reviewed and we can create more pathways to housing. And then, of course, a lot of the housing programs that are coming out don't really reflect the need of the community. So we need more housing programs that reflect the need of our community, that have more funding for support and infrastructure. And infrastructure, I should say, is a huge barrier for us because although in our urban settings, it have been built out, so there's not a lot of room. And in our rural settings, there's no infrastructure. So it's definitely a huge barrier for us. Thank you. Sam.
Thank you, Ms. Silva. We'll now proceed with one round of questions. We'll start with Mr. Shields. Mr. Shields, you have 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the witnesses today. Very much appreciated. Very different approach and very different circumstances. Go to Ms. Silva. I think you were just getting to recommendations. I'd give you a little more time if you succinctly could tell us recommendations you had right there at the end.
Right. I was talking a little bit about infrastructure. And we definitely, we have received some funding to build some housing on reserve, but a lot of that funding doesn't come with infrastructure funding. And so, water services and sewer and things like that. So it would be great to have access to more funding to develop our reserves up to be able to do housing, but also for the home ownership program that we're running. So it's a great program, but infrastructure is really, it's a piece that's not covered a lot of the time in the home loan program because it's so unaffordable and unattainable to our community members. So it'd be nice to see more programs that address infrastructure.
Thank you. Two great recommendations. The land base for your nation is where you're attempting to build this new housing?
That's right. It's located in North Vancouver on our Capilano Reserve in our Homolcheson Village.
So, okay, now that sort of defines where you're at. In a sense, you have enough land base in that area to develop quite a bit more housing then?
So we're a fairly large nation. We have reserves in North Vancouver, but those are fairly built out. We don't have a lot of lands there, but we do have more lands in more rural settings such as Squamish, but we don't have infrastructure in Squamish to develop housing.
Catch 22. Any possibility of land trading in the sense of what you would like to do in the sense of leasing out high value in North Vancouver to expand your base in Squamish?
It may be a possibility, definitely. We have a lot of it. Amazingly, we've got a lot of support, and there's a lot of nonprofits that are coming to us and offering land back as a step into reconciliation. And so that's been really amazing. The rent supplement program that we've ran actually was a donation that we received. So it'd be amazing to see more companies and individuals step up with more donations in the future.
I think you're talking about some creative things you have done and a creative future you've got, but you've got a generational that's at risk that you need to do something as quickly as possible, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. And we have, in the last 2 years, we're developing 200 units.
You did mention challenges of the Indian Act.
Yeah. One of the challenges that we're dealing with right now is that we have to do referendum votes called land designations under the Indian Act in order to be able to get leasing or financing. And it's a barrier because it's this huge process. We have to go to the community and get them to vote. There's tons of legal costs and it's very timely. And at the end of the day, we did it. And of course, we got a yes vote. I mean, there's the need is great. It was 90% move forward. And the community was going, well, why are we even doing this? This is crazy. But there is a section of the Indian Act, Section 18.2, that is used to build community infrastructure, such as, I believe, like stadiums and schools and things like that. It would be great to see social housing, not profit housing, built under this section of the Indian Act, because it is definitely a huge barrier. And I don't know why we have to have such a restraint on developing housing within our own community.
Yeah, that's a big question, which we'd like to see resolved. Thank you. Professor Natalica, you mentioned a really grassroots process, but yet we've got two levels of government. Where's the feasibility in what seems like a very, very natural grassroots building project of lumber mills and all the pieces go with it? Where's the roadblocks and how can we resolve it?
It seemed that some of those roadblocks, I was talking to a colleague of mine who works with a lot of First Nations in New Brunswick, and it just seems that, they're interested in moving some of this stuff forward, but there hasn't been a lot of uptake from the provinces in interest in this or other areas. And so I think that is a big roadblock. But as I tried to convey, I do think that there could be a role for Canada here, whether that is one that is more related to funding and providing of supports in terms of capacity development and infrastructure dollars. Or I also think, too, when we've seen more recent examples of Canada starting to legislate more in the area in terms of accommodating Indigenous rights, Bill C-92, the Indigenous Language Rights Bill being an example. So I do think that possibility is there. And there's authorities to support that if the need to go that far is required. But probably a very good starting point would be looking at the infrastructure and capacity support.
Which means going through a cooperative, looking at the federal department, working with the province and getting to it. If you're talking about the legal process, we're talking years.
Yes, right. So, I mean, there's different ways to get at this. And I think that sort of cooperative process is a faster possibility. I don't necessarily want to preclude the legislative process. You are correct. It is take a long time, but like as a good starting point would be, you certainly will have to be working with the provinces, but there's a lot that could be done with Canada, working with First Nations now.
Right. Mr. Chair.
Sorry, you have 5 seconds, unfortunately.
Thank you. Got it timed.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
With that, Mr. Weiler, you have 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd also like to thank Professor Metallic and Ms. Silva for joining our committee meeting today to talk about a hugely important topic from coast to coast to coast. I'd like to ask my first question to HEAM Housing, and through you, Mr. Chair, to Ms. Silva. What objectives led Squamish to set up HEAM Housing? You spoke a little bit to this in your opening, but what were the main objectives of setting up a separate nonprofit housing authority to addressing some of the housing challenges?
I can speak to that, of course. I was actually one of the founding members of HEAM Housing, and I've worked in the nonprofit sector for over 10 years now. And I think that they're doing some really amazing things here in our province, especially BC Housing. They've started to develop and fund housing on reserve, which was, it was always a federal jurisdiction that the provincial government doesn't traditionally fund. However, they have stepped up and they have started funding. And so part of getting access to that funding meant that you had to be an incorporated nonprofit. And so that was, of course, a little bit of a draw, but it was also like you said before, it was the ability to separate operations and have their own governance and do that whole part of it as well. So, but I mean, it was also, the housing crisis that we were dealing with, and the current model, the single family home, we knew was never going to meet the need. And so we knew that we had to build up, we needed to do more high density and a variety of different types, because before we were only doing single family homes, and it was really by date of application. And so there was all these other people who people with disabilities, or people who may need addiction support with addictions, or youth or students. And so there was all these target populations that were being left out of the current housing program. And so HEAM Housing, our model is that we want to make sure that everybody within the community, every need is being met essentially. And so that was part of our mandate. And yeah, I think so far it's been working really well.
Yeah, so I'd like to speak just a little bit more towards kind of the experience thus far for HEAM Housing, knowing that it is a fairly young organization. And, it was great to be able to participate in the announcement just a couple months ago with the Rapid Housing Initiative to deliver some much needed supportive housing projects on the North Shore as well as in Squamish. And this has been part of a bigger program to address urban Indigenous housing across BC. So I was hoping you could maybe just speak a little bit more to the experience in the few years since HEAM's housing has been set up, and where you found the most success.
Yeah, well, partnerships. Definitely. And we have a really strong partnership with CMHC and with BC Housing and a variety of different nonprofits as well. And so those have really helped us kind of negotiate, because the funding right now, they want to show that everybody is coming to the table with something, and it's a partnership moving forward. And so we've had an amazing, a lot of support, and really building on those relationships has been really great for us. And the Rapid Housing Project we're really, really excited about, because we've never had this type of housing in our community. It's supportive housing. We can bring members home. We can make sure that they're getting the supports that they need, and hopefully we can move them along into safer, more affordable housing. So we're really excited about it. So I guess, partnerships, relationships have been really important to our success. We also partner with other nonprofits as well, because we're new. So we bring in other really large, successful nonprofits throughout BC to help us build up our own capacity and operations. And that's been that's been great as well. We've got a lot of support with that.
Great. And you've already mentioned a few recommendations to this point, but I was wondering if you could provide recommendations for maybe other First Nations and as well as to our committee on how this model can best be used to address housing challenges in Indigenous communities.
Yeah, well, I think the one size all fits approach to different First Nation doesn't necessarily work. And we're all very unique and different in our needs. We're very much in an urban setting. And so, that high density kind of approach does work for us, but it won't necessarily work for a community up north. And so you kind of need to look at each community and see, what the issues and concerns are. But I think at the end of the day, when you speak to the First Nations, they know what they're dealing with. They've dealt with housing for 30 years. They understand, how to move forward. And for us, like I said before, the Housing Authority model did work. The nonprofit, it is working in a sense that, we can do a lot of our own planning, and we can, do the strategic planning, and we can access a lot more funding that wasn't really available just to a First Nation. So, yeah, if it is a First Nation that's struggling with housing, it's just, I would just recommend to just look at different models that are out there and reach out and make connections and see what's working and see what's not working as well.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, how much time do I have left?
You have 25 seconds.
Okay, maybe just quickly, if you could speak to some of the work you're doing on renovations.
We currently don't have a renovation program. It's definitely a need within our community, but we started the home loan program last year, and we're looking to expand on it in different phases. So we're going to be looking to do a renovation program in the next few years. It's definitely a big need. I think where that gets really exciting for our community is that we have a lot of homes that were developed, or single family homes that the bottom units were never fully developed because there was never really a lot of funding to do that. So you have a lot of family members that are living in basements that don't have flooring or don't have proper insulation and things like that. What we think that the renovation program can do is help our membership be able to renovate their basement suites, and then they could have their family members, or they could have their aunties and their grandmas living in these units and in a safer and healthier environment.
Thank you, Mr. Weiler. Nous allons passer maintenant.
Now we're going to turn to Madame Gill. 6 minutes. Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to our witnesses, Ms. Metalik, whom I've heard speak on a number of occasions, so with much interest I listened today, as well as Ms. Silva. Now, a question first for Ms. Silva. Regarding the needs, you talked that wall-to-wall doesn't work. Of course, First Nation to First Nation. But earlier you also talked about that in terms of housing units as well. What we've heard in our committee is that there's a need that is relatively the same type of housing. So do policies and programs at this time provide equity in terms of housing? I'm thinking of persons with health problems or multi-general housing. We know that seniors and our elders in communities have difficulty for accessing. I'd like to hear you speak to this. Thank you.
Yeah, there are a lot of diverse housing needs in the First Nations communities. And I think we're working on doing a housing needs assessment right now, and it's something that we're trying to seek out funding for. But I think that would really help the different First Nations to understand what the actual need is. We have done a few studies into the need. And elders, of course, are the priority. And then we have youth and working families for our priority, but that could be different in other communities. We currently don't have housing for our seniors. Our seniors, unfortunately, there's just not a lot of funding for them to come home and get that long-term support that they need in the different housing model types, I guess. So I think taking a little bit of a flexible approach to the housing programs and policies would be great, in a sense that, again, that everybody's need is very different. But I think what's missing in a lot of the different programs that are coming out is that support piece. And so, it could be housing just for the structure, but we need to come home and do healing from all of the generation of trauma. And how are we going to get to home ownership and intergenerational wealth if we don't deal with, the current issues that we're facing within our community? So we need those supports that are developed into those programs. And along with that, what I'm finding with a lot of the different programs as well is that they're designed to address the income levels of non-Indigenous communities, meaning that CMHC might say, well, the rents here are based on the CMHC average for North Vancouver. But the CMHC average for North Vancouver does not reflect the income levels of our community and the need in our community. So I think, I think just taking a more approach of possibly, flexibility, I guess, and just building in infrastructure. And then, of course, possibly having Indigenous people at the table when you're creating housing programs or working on policy.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much, Ms. Silva. Yes, indeed. We need to really be able to meet the differing needs and include people from different communities. I have a question for Ms. Metallic. In reference to what you talked about earlier and the Mi'kmaq Nation, to your knowledge, I mean, you're talking about forests, woods, and in Nunavut, it wouldn't be the same. Now, based on your knowledge, do you know whether there are possibilities for other First Nations to, I know it's complex, to take advantage of similar rights as the Mi'kmaq do in your area? I am not aware of any similar situations brought forth by other First Nations. I know that there is a case in regard to a treaty out west where somebody built a kind of cabin to help with the hunting. But I think there are many other communities like the Mi'kmaq and who have used wood. And the courts have ruled on these rights. I think it would be possible for the Government of Canada. I mean, they have recognized self-government for family and children. So I think that's why I talk about, recognition in the legislation. There are rights that exist for different Native groups. We don't need them all to resort to the courts to make sure that their rights are respected. In fact, the courts have encouraged the Canadian government to recognize the Indigenous law. So I think it is possible. And I think there are many other Indigenous groups and First Nations in the South who have also used wood in the same way we have. Thank you, Ms. Gill. And now we're going to turn to Ms.
It's good to see you. If you can reply, I will ask you both this question. The United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act received royal assent in June 2021. The law requires the Government of Canada to take all measures necessary to ensure that the laws of Canada are consistent with the Declaration. In consultation
Do you see that? It says EN or FR. Professor Metallic, can you do you see the little icon that I mentioned? If you look at the center of your Zoom screen, there's like a little raise hand, and then there's a little globe. If you select the little globe, select English, EN.
I will try and speak in English so you can understand me.
I understand now. Thank you. I'm very sorry.
Should I start from the beginning?
First of all, I want to welcome both of you for your presentation. It's very interesting. Naomi, it's good to see you again, as we know each other. I will address to both of you, and you can reply separately. The United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act received royal assent in June 2021. The law requires the Government of Canada to take all measures necessary to ensure that the laws of Canada are consistent with the Declaration, in consultation and cooperation with Indigenous peoples. The law requires that the Minister of Justice to prepare and to implement an action plan to achieve the objectives of the Declaration. My question is, how can this law affect housing programs, strategies, and accords for Indigenous peoples in Canada?
I can speak to that. Thank you. For me, the Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples is really all about self-determination. And so the right to be able to live within our communities and practice our way of life, but also to administer the different programs and policies. And for housing, I believe that would mean for us to be fully involved in the creation of policy and in programs in our communities, for us to be able to manage those freely within our communities as well. But I also believe that housing should be a priority, because without housing within our community, we can't access, we can't access our culture, we can't access our families, we can't access our schools that are going to help us really be successful and have longevity. And so I really believe that housing really needs to be a priority within our communities. And yeah, I mean, I hope that it's not just that, we're brought to the table and that it's, you've signed or checked the box that the Indigenous person is there and they've participated. It has to be real and true participation for it to really work. And it has to be based on, strong relationships and acknowledging, what's happened in the past as well. So thank you. I hope that answers the question.
Ms. Metallic, Professor Metallic, did you want to comment on that?
Yes, please. So I agree with everything Ms. Silva has said. I would also emphasize that the UN Declaration Act recognizes that the UN Declaration is an instrument that recognizes fundamental human rights. And so our Section 35 rights are incorporated in that, but it goes broader than that, and it expands actually a whole panoply of rights that have been recognized by Indigenous peoples throughout the world as being key. And I certainly agree with self-determination. I would also highlight Article 21 that speaks about that Indigenous people have the right to improvement of their economic and social conditions, including in the areas of education, employment, and housing is underlined, as well as sanitation and social security. And most importantly, Article 21 sub 2 says that states shall take effective measures and, where appropriate, special measures to ensure continuing improvement of their economic and social conditions. So this is a really, I think, important provision in the declaration that underscores that it's not just, effective measures. In fact, special measures may have to be taken in order to redress social situations and lack of housing.
Thank you, Naomi. I'll ask you again. If you were a member of parliament in 2006, there was a court case. If you were an MP and the Housing Act, if we were going to apply it properly, how would you enforce it or apply it as a MP?
I'm not 100% sure I get the question. I think that there is certainly roles that I guess members of parliament can push for in terms of the government. I'm a big proponent of what I'll call legislative reconciliation, and that there are steps that governments can take in order to clarify the law. The problem with a lot of the court decisions is that we have these rights, but governments have not picked them up and sort of helped the communities in terms of actualizing and implementing them, right? So yes, you have a court decision, but what does that mean on the day-to-day? And you might need funding and resources in order to actually make it into something. So that's what I'm saying about the decision I discussed with you today, that we need to sort of pick it up and actually do something with it rather than just say, oh, there's a court decision. But it takes work to actually implement and fill in the blanks and because there's lots of details that need to be worked out. And I think that there's the legislative role. And I also think that there's, also encouraging the executive to take certain actions as well.
Thank you, Ms. Seidlout. That concludes our question period. I'd like to finish off by thanking Professor Metallic and Ms. Sarah Silva for their testimony today and for answering our questions. You've taken us into an area that we need to talk about as part of this larger study. So we very much appreciate your time today. Thank you for being with us. With
thank
that, you're most welcome. With that, colleagues, we'll suspend and we'll rejoin on the in-camera link for further business. Thank you.